Hello everyone, today we're going to take a look at the AuroraRC Demon. Yeah, it's a demon because, well, it's got horns on top. And all through this video, you are going to hear me make comparisons through the HGLRC MotoWhoop. I think it's a normal comparison. They're both kind of beefy. They're both kind of not really Cine whoops. They're both kind of not racing whoops because they're big and heavy. DJI FPV whoops. So I think the comparison's pretty reasonable. Let's get it down to the desk. We'll cover the specs. And then we'll go for a fly. First, let's start with the flight controller. Really hard to see down there, but there's a USB port, and that is an F411 all-in-one 20 amp BLLES, so it's not 32-bit ESC. The motor is an RCM Power GTS 1204 5000 kV. Props of the Gem Fan 2036 quad-bladed props. And for our digital FPV purposes, we have the Cadix Vista in there, and the camera as well. It's the White Nebula Pro. And we have a circular polarized antenna on the back. We have a buzzer with an LED light on it. XT30 with a capacitor out here on the end. Really doesn't do much other than that initial snap of the battery. No battery pad. Initially also found some of these screws were a little bit loose, so I tightened them up. You do get an extra foam pad, which you have half of it looks like Mickey Mouse, but you might be able to paint the inside bit for a little bit of fun. Get the Vista guide you get with every Vista. This is the battery mat. I didn't use it. It's super thin, but it is rubber and it does have that mesh grip on it. And we have some extra screws here on the backside. And we get this single-setted guide, which shows us our pinout for the flight controller, and a little bit more information. These whoops are not attached to one another. They're only secured down here at the bottom to the carbon fiber plate, which appears to be 2 millimeters thick. I am getting 100 millimeters motor post to motor post. It weighs just a little over 114 grams. I flew it on this G&B 550 milliamp 4S battery, which brings the weight to just about 186 grams. Hopefully you can see there, it's fairly windy. About 14 miles an hour. So not ideal for this, but the weather was actually beautiful outside of that wind. Nearly 50 degrees. I cannot complain. I have to take advantage of every moment of that when I can. You can see that the lens protector that it comes with, it actually gets in the view a little bit. So either it's a misprint or it just doesn't shove far enough back. I actually tried a couple different times to shove it further back to see if I could get it out of view. So that's a case of something being off there. Typically, when I've purchased those, they've worked flawlessly. They go right over the lens. You don't even see them. They do provide you a touch of protection if you were to center something. I'm going with I guess you'd call it a little bit more aggressive flight, just because that's what I wanted to do. That's kind of where my passion is just going faster. I'm not necessarily a racer because I don't travel to compete, but I wanted to go faster and do some more aggressive flying, because whenever you can find something like this that can handle more aggressive flying, you can always slow down if you want to do the smooth cinematic sort of flight as well. But not all these with prop protection, micro especially, can do both really well at all. So that's one of the reasons why we're starting out with this flight. We've got a lot of bobbles, a lot of wiggles, and I think the main problem is that these whoops or prop protection, however you see them, they're moving around because they're actually quite flexible, and because they're not connected to one another, you can get all sorts of disjointed vibrations going on there as you fly through the air. The only thing that's holding them kind of together, outside of the carbon fiber down at the bottom, is that foam pad, which isn't very hard. I guess foam can't be too hard if it's going to, take some of that impact when you have a crash, but I just think they're too flexible. I think they may have been close on this, but I would say it's probably a pass for most of you unless there's just really something that you see. The price point is like $270, so it's something else. That little thing I did over the swing set, that did not go well. I had to bail out of that thing. So at $270, I think it's tough to buy anything like this. Okay, the next step, most of you have probably already typed it down in the video description, or excuse me, in the comment section, is, well, take the hoops and that off. Well, I'm going to do that. But I only had 3 days of outside fly time with this. Unfortunately, one of those 3 days, I could barely feel my fingers. It was like 8 degrees and about this windy. Another day was in the 30s, so that was decent. I'll take a 30-degree day, and it wasn't very calm either. So this was really one of the only days that was bearable that I could get out and fly this and actually feel my fingers very well and feel like I could give it a go. So this is kind of a 3-day review, which is a little bit unusual for me and my channel. I've got a funny little crash here to share with you. I take off from the table and wang into the back of the chair and spill onto the ground. Oh, sometimes we just aren't in tune with our quads. I wanted to insert this little section here before we get on with the next flight, which is a slower flight. I'm not going to wrap up with a bench review. I don't think it really warrants that, but I did want to mention that I did fly this again today. I mentioned earlier in the video, it was like a 3-day flyer review. It's actually kind of 4. I wanted to spend a couple more batteries trying to tune it. In the goggles and reviewing the footage, I didn't think my tuning did much more to help it. It made some difference, but I think you'd have to go a lot further to make it to where somebody would want this for actually slow cruising, cinematic flying. I think when it comes to more aggressive flying, it does okay. With the tune on it now, I did have that one kind of wipeout odd above the swing set in the first flight that you saw. But we're going to go back to that slow flight here in just a second. But I wanted to bring one thing to your attention because I'm not really doing the bench review section that usually trails all the flight footage. You see I cut out the centers, and I had to do that because the carbon isn't cut through. So the shaft and the C-clip doesn't have anywhere to go, no void there. So you've got to have some sort of gap. So I just cut the pieces out and placed them back underneath the motors to make sure that they could spin freely. Otherwise, the motors aren't going to rotate. You're going to have some spacer under there. I'm going to work on retuning this as time permits. Hopefully it's a better flyer without its prop guard. Kind of defeats the purpose of buying a quad like this. Kind of looks kind of strange. Look how tall that thing is. My 10-year-old said it reminds her of Mikey from Monsters University. The big purple monster guy. Anyways, we're about 98.5 grams now. So one advantage this does have over the MotoWhoop is the fact that you could remove the prop guards, whereas the MotoWhoop requires something to secure the canopy. The MotoWhoop canopy is supported by the whoop, so you've got to have these in some form, or at least you've got to have something to support that canopy. But I think the MotoWhoop just flies better, and if you're looking at this and you want the prop guards, I would look at the MotoWhoop. I think it's just better. Of course, I've got the review video linked down in the video description, and I'll find some places that are selling this and link it down there as well. So hopefully this flies better without the prop guard, and when I give it away, somebody will have a better flying quad. Not giving it away in this video. Look for that in a future video. Let's move on to the slower flight. So after spending most of my time doing the aggressive flying, of course you got to slow down. Let's see if it does the slow flight a little bit better. And still, this is that same day from the flight I showed you. It moves around too much. I can't imagine anybody would be happy with the amount of movement that you're getting. And I think the MotoWhoop is just going to be better. It's just better. I think both of the prop protections are going to break if you're flying aggressively. I broke the prop protection on the MotoWhoop when I was flying inside the house. The MotoWhoop does come with extra prop guards, so that's one benefit, whereas the Demon only comes with an extra foam protection. I think that was a miss. I think they needed to include some extra whoops. I also think those whoops need to be a little bit more stiff because of the weight. We just need a little bit more material there to keep them steady so that you can actually fly and they're not going to move around so much. So in short, with this review, I think if you're looking at this, while it might be interesting in name and it has those horns on the canopy print, I think you're better off looking at the HGLRC MotoWhoop. Caddx did update apparently the sensor in the Nebula Nano because when I did that HGLRC MotoWhoop review, I was really surprised at the image quality out of that nano camera. Recently, I asked Caddx about that, and they said they did do a small update. But if you go back and you look at my original review of the Nebula Nano, it was not good, and they were mad at me. I was really surprised that they have sent me any cameras since. They were sending me emails about how I was trying to destroy their company. I'm just like, hey, I'm just telling everybody what I see. So anyways, I think with the combination of the improved Nebula Nano camera as well as just a better overall performing quad, the HGLRC MotoWhoop would be the one I would choose in this category. I'll leave the review video that I have on it down in the video description, as well as a link directly to the product if you just want to jump to that and investigate the current pricing. I don't know what the current pricing is. I haven't looked recently. But you can find that if you have a favorite vendor. I always tell people to vote with your dollar. Don't vote where I just tell you to go buy or where anyone really tells you to go buy. Vote with your dollar. If you have your favorite shop and they have what you want, you should definitely buy from them. Doesn't matter. So vote with your dollar, but I will put some links to the HGLRC MotoWhoop, as well as if you want to check out the AuroraRC Demon down in the video description. Otherwise, if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or, yeah, otherwise, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. Hey, everybody at Wootopia. Hope you're having a good time. I sure hope to join you one day. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching.